Set.
Welcome into Shaping Reality. I'm Kimberly, and I'm joined tonight by Penny Kelly. Hi, Penny. How are you doing?
Hi there. I'm well. I'm well. I hope you are too.
We were busy chatting. We completely forgot. We got to hop on and talk about this stuff. So
Yeah.
tonight we're going to be doing a deep dive into the look-see, Penny's look-see for the month of February. And I'll tell you what, you guys, I was listening to the look-see again just a little while before Penny and I hopped on, and I thought, oh my gosh, where do we go from here, Penny? So I have lots of questions about whatever topic that you want to talk about the look-see. What are your what are your strongest thoughts about this particular month?
I think if I had to be honest, do I need to be honest? It would be that, oh my God, we're into the, what I'm going to call the end zone, or we're like, what do they call it in football? You're 2 yards away from
Whatever
your
that
end
thing is.
zone. Yeah, from the goal. That's it, the goal line or the goal post or whatever it is. We're so close, and it's so discouraging. And you'll notice that you're right there when all of a sudden you lose interest in all of the stuff you've been hearing for the last few years, all of the conversations, all of the stories, all of the people who have been talking about this, that, and whatever, because there's nothing new. Everything goes into like a holding pattern right before there's a big poof or a big boom or a big kick in the rear. And so that's it's one of those things that you just have to realize, okay, we're really close now to something shifting. Either the bad boys are going to make a move, or the good boys, what do they call them, the good guys, are
The
going to
wine
make.
hats or the
Yeah,
what are we
if
calling
the
them these days?
right,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. So and I always tell Penny I'm such a good match for her because I'm sort of a normie. And so I come up with these normie questions.
I love it.
The way that and I do try to keep abreast of what's going on around the planet, what different governments are doing, what our government's doing or not doing, what's happening. And it seems like right now, particularly right now, with the information that you shared about Soros and what he has done with his billions of dollars in resources instead of supporting humanity, what Netanyahu is actually doing,
Yeah,
building a canal and going after the oil that was discovered. It's like, is that really, really we're gonna harm all these people for that?
I
And
know.
and then the interview that you suggested with Michael Yon, which led me to watch several interviews with Michael Yon about what is really happening at the border, and it's not immigration, it's an invasion.
Yeah.
And so I look at this and I think we are literally so screwed. And then from my position, I'm like, well, what can I do?
Mm,
What can we do? And so I think that maybe a lot of people are wondering the same thing.
yeah. I think it's really important to prepare at least something. If somebody said, if I came along and said, okay, we're going to have a war and it's going to last 2 years, then you would want to say, okay, what happens in war? Typically, you can't get everything that you need. So, what are the things that make life sweet? For some people, it's a cup of coffee every morning. For some people, it's the right perfume. For some people, it's having enough seeds to be able to get through 2 years worth of planting, unless they learn how to collect seeds, et cetera, et cetera. So for some, it's, I remember hearing my mother talk about during World War II. She was young, fairly young, but she couldn't get nylon stockings. And that was such a disappointing, troublesome thing. So, do you have enough socks? Do you have enough underwear? Do you have enough bras? Do you have enough blue jeans or shirts or ties or whatever? You need food. You need to stockpile a little bit of food. Things typically they're gonna get through, but they may be slow, or they may cost a lot. A lot of times the financial system does crazy things in a war. And I remember back in 2016 when Trump was elected, it was October of 2017, I think it was, that I happened across the very first Q post, and I read it and I started following that whole thing. And after a while, I didn't really have time to go past the first 2 years, but about 2 years in, it was like all of the young alternative media reporters, pundits, new kinds of journalists were saying, we never dreamed this was going to go on this long. And I thought, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
you have not experienced war. You're not old enough to remember the Vietnam War. I remember the Korean War and the Vietnam War and all the silly, stupid wars we've had ever since that accomplished nothing except a bunch of deaths and disruption and total takedown. I remember seeing Iraq and Syria and knowing some people in Syria who were like, oh no, that could never happen. We are a modern country. We have everything. We have television, we have electricity, we have power, we have internet, we have cell phones, and then poof, all of it disappeared, got blown up by the US. And so you don't know what your area is going to be subject to. So prepare. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. I think that and I remember the Vietnam War too. Of course, I was, much younger. I'm a little bit younger than you.
Yeah.
What I'm noticing now is because we have information, we have more information than we have in the past. Mostly what we get from our governments is a bunch of lies, but we do have independent, sources
Yes.
now that are going out and bringing in the real information. And we're seeing, so or at least I believe that a lot of people are seeing so blatantly that all these wars have nothing to do with freeing a country or stopping a bad guy. It has to do with money.
Yeah.
It's all money for very few people. And to me, what's going on around on the planet right now, particularly all the money laundering through Ukraine, I mean, it's so obvious to me that that's all that's going on there.
Yeah.
That people, I think that if I'm seeing it, people are seeing it. This is just money. It's a money grab and a control grab by a very few people. And we're nothing more than little cogs in the wheel to keep things greased up for their lives.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering about, and we mentioned it before we came on, is I'm curious about the lack of action from the populace.
Yeah.
And then I brought up the thing, well, it's the whole new age concept or
Right.
belief system really more of a psyop? Because if I was to tell you right now, Penny, what my understanding of new age is, oh, there's a war going on, don't look at it. Don't look at it. Look at something else and go do something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I understand that what you focus on, increases.
That's right.
But ignoring something, ignoring the alligator in your living room. I live in Florida, ignoring the alligator in your living room,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. So can you walk us through that?
Okay. So I'll just say that my view of the New Age movement is that it was warmed over religion. When you go back and you study religion before the Christians got a hold of power and started building their monotheistic citadel, I guess you'd call it. There was a different way of believing. There was a different way of knowing that it was. I think we could use a blanket term and say most was Gnostic. It was knowing from within that was nurtured, that was kind of brought forward, and that the concept, I think maybe we've talked about it before, the term Jesus was a title that was given to the very wise who had developed their consciousness and were teachers and healers and leaders and wisdom people. And so they referred to, well, you would ask, who's the Jesus in this town? And then along came the Christians, and they said, we're going to make this into a person. And they created a whole story. They fashioned that story after their opposition leader. This is hard to get your mind around. There were two factions that were fighting. The Roman Austrian side, I think, was one side, and the Constantinople side was the other side, and Constantinople lost. And the man who was the head of that was crucified. And he also happened to be a very wise, very powerful leader. And so they concocted this story around him. He really existed and he really was crucified. And they just kind of embellished the whole thing pretty dramatically. At the same time, there were other people who were playing off of him and who were saying, this guy's got something going. He's magic. And so they were writing about it. And he was known as the Jesus because he was the Jesus in that area. And so the whole thing is really, there's some conflicts, big conflicts in the story. And a lot of old time, what I'll call, what do you call those, scrolls, parchments and things like that were rewritten. And that's what we have now, is a lot of those rewritten things that were rewritten to reflect that story. And so it's become, it's the history that we have believed in terms of religion is not really the history of that religion. So what we have now is this warmed over religion in which the old teaching, which was know from within, was wiped out by the Christians who said, no, just believe. All you have to do is believe.
Believe us, it's the truth.
Yeah, just believe. Don't think about it. Don't analyze it. Don't listen to that voice from within. That voice from within is the devil. And so what have we got today? That's the legacy of that whole Christian Gnostic fight. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know what I can do. So we have to look really pretty realistically. We've let things go a long way. And if we want to shape reality to be something that we like and we can live with, you have to be willing to contribute. You have to be willing to put your hands on it and literally shape it and love it into being. And we have a whole bunch of people that are just standing back doing this, and they're frozen. And so it's really hard it's like, come on. So
okay, keep talking, Penny. I have to go do something really quickly.
Oh, okay. All right. So let me just say, for those of you that are interested in what we can do, let's just talk about in the look-see. I listed some things. They were not things that we could do. They were when I was with Don Juan and he was teaching, this would have been called not doing. Doing.
And so is that what we're doing? We're not doing?
Well, right now, yes. Although we're not doing effectively. when you're going to not do something, it has to have a target and a purpose. Okay? So if you're going to do something, same thing. You have to have a target and a purpose. But if you're going to not do, then that not doing is, if I can say it like he taught it, I'm not sure I can. You want to not do or not respond the way that your antagonist is trying to get you to respond.
Right. Yeah.
So the goal is to not do what the antagonist is putting out there. And the antagonist almost always has, the antagonist in Don Juan's terms was called the worthy enemy, worthy of a full out, full blown, full fledged resistance. Absolutely. And so when you were going to not do, what you did was you studied, you watched, you observed, you listened, you figured out the game that was being played. You figured out where the weak spots in your enemy, your worthy enemy or your antagonist, where those weak spots were. And then you formulated a plan. And then you watched for the moment when that plan could be implemented. And there would come a moment in time when all of a sudden, kaboom, it would be implemented and the enemy would take themselves down 50, 60, 70, even 90% of the time, because they just were not flexible. They had all these expectations that you were going to conform, that they were going to be able to entrap you, that you would respond the way they thought you would respond, and you didn't. And so they ended up sort of shooting themselves in the foot. And the result was that you won and you got rid of the worthy enemy. And then there was this, what I'll call this gap, where you needed to have a secondary plan. Okay, next. Now what? Who's going to step into the role of leader? What, if it was an organization, what, how much of this organization can be saved or needs to be saved? Or do we let it go altogether? What was the purpose of this organization? Were they serving it? Things like that you have to be looking at. Okay, so for instance, let me use Social Security as a good example. If that goes down and we are, I forget how many millions of 58 million seniors in this country getting Social Security, some people living totally on Social Security. What's the plan for that? How do we take care of 58 million people and still protect or cover our own behind so that anybody who's thinking, oh, look at, they're in a very weak spot, we could go in and take over that place. You have to be watching ahead and behind. And so we haven't, I see a few people here and there talking about, we're doing this, we're doing that. And it's such a little effort. It's like, oh, okay, we need a lot more people to be aware and engaged, and at least aware, maybe not so much engaged. When the moment to switch comes, fine. Then everybody that's going to make the switch is going to be under pressure. But, you don't have to make that switch until you have to make that switch. So the not doing is really the crux of what we started to talk about here. And so one of the things that not doing would require would be that we just really don't pay any attention to the government and what it's doing and what it's saying, etc. Attention, yes, things grow when you pay attention to them, but you have to be watching, okay, where's the line? between, because you don't want to cause trouble for yourself. And how many are also not doing with you, etc. So,
Yeah, and I think that they have definitely, or the powers that be,
uh-huh.
the infamous they, have really sent the message that if you try to push back, we're going to bring the full force
Yep, they
down
do.
on you.
Yeah.
And that's been very effective. I mean, what they've done with the J6ers, what they're doing,
Yes.
how lawfare is being used across the country and around the world.
Yeah.
France is toying with a law that would make it a felony
I know.
to talk against certain medical, you
Yeah.
know, interventions. A felony to
I
not
know.
agree. To not agree. So it's getting ridiculous, and it does create fear in people that, boy, I sure, it's like, I sure don't want to post anything on social media. I sure don't want to stand up. I sure don't want to do that. It's effective in that way. Here's the question I
Uh-huh.
have, and I was thinking about all the things you listed in the end of the look-see about what we can
Yeah.
do in a peaceful manner
Right.
that really kind of thwarts the whole plan. In other words, the plan doesn't work unless we play along with it,
That's right.
because we are the source of energy and power and work and that sort of
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Here's a question I have for you, and it has to do with consciousness, because you said at the end of the look-see, you said we could use our consciousness, but humanity is not there yet.
I know.
We haven't worked on our consciousness to the point where we could use it to create the outcome that we're looking for. My question is, how powerful is a decision? In other words,
Individual?
I'm sorry?
Individual?
Yes. In other words, my decision, if they come out with a whole new bug that they're going to toss around the planet and then decide, everybody
Yeah.
needs a medication, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. They come
Yeah.
up with CBDCs, I'm not doing it. I don't care what I'm not doing it, because there's
Yeah.
no coming back from that. So my question for you is that the beginning of developing a consciousness that's going to pull us out of this?
It's the beginning, but you have to, after you make that decision, individual decision, you have to have a strategy that says, okay, what if I'm not going to be part of that world, what world am I going to be part of? And if you take that seriously, then you have to stop and think, okay, how set up am I to be self-sufficient? How ready to be on my own? How strong am I? How, am I willing to be outside the circle of society, and so on and so forth? And that you need a whole plan. You need a new life plan, new lifestyle. And there are people that are waiting for things to pop so that they can implement their plan. And sometimes that's too late, sometimes not. But that it's a one individual that's you deciding your path. And you may have a rough go if you're trying to do it alone and the whole world goes the other way. And you can always reserve the right to change your mind. If it looks like, yeah, I could probably live with that if I had to. But if you make that decision and then you start moving in that direction, you're going to give off energies and like a wave or an aura of consciousness around you that invites others to do the same thing. They may be not quite as organized as you. You may be not quite as organized as them, but you'll find one another and you'll end up supporting and saying, oh, thank God I'm not the only one. So an individual decision is very, very powerful. A small group decision is really only for that group. If you're talking about the whole United States, we'd have to have quite a few people that were saying, I don't think I'm going to go there. I'm not getting that thing in the arm. I'm not going to CBDCs. I'm not joining they're now putting vaccines in
Lettuce.
food, lettuce. Yeah, right. Everything, tomatoes, the whole thing. Um, Pork. They've been putting it in pork for a while, and so it's really a matter of, okay, how far are you willing to go? Um, it's up to each individual. But when everybody focuses together, that's pretty powerful. That's a that's the consciousness, the bulk consciousness that my people said you'd have to have. You need all those consciousnesses in order to focus in the direction that you want to go in if you want to overcome this. And I got that message 25 years ago, maybe 30. That's a long time. And very, it's been very heartwarming to realize that people are waking up. At the same time, it's been, really frightening at times that there's not enough. And so the ones who are awake are at risk of being taken out. Although, when I got the message to, okay, go, speak, stand up, it's time, go, go, go. The message that came with that was the famous they you were just talking about, are too tangled up in their own. They're trying to hide what they're doing. They're trying to rethink it. They don't have the channels, the reach that they used to have to just poof, take somebody out. They still do, but they don't have the reach and the power they used to have. They're too busy trying to rethink, reorganize, and reinstate their own power. And they're covering their own butt as much as possible. So they're not going to bother with small potatoes. By you staying under the radar, you're now small potatoes. So I was like, okay, I'm trusting. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What would you like to be seeing? Is everything going along in a way that you think we're going to end up being successful, or would you like to be seeing something else or different or more?
What would I like to be seeing? You know what I would like? I would like to see the population of the United States, at least, and even the populations of the West, stand up, look at each other, and say, you look like you really love Biden. So, I don't like him. Or the people on the other side, you look like you really like the Republican or the Trump thing. What do you need to make that work for you? Why aren't we facilitating one another instead of just pounding away at one another? What could we experience if we ended up saying to the other side, we're not sure we understand, but by God, you are my brother, my sister, and I want to support you in whatever way I can. As long as you're not attacking me, I'm not going to attack you. And the things that I can't use will pass to you. If you can use them, have at it. There's a mutual kind of allowing to flower that I think would just blow everybody's mind in terms of what the possibilities are and what the options become when you stop fighting and start saying, I don't know why we're fighting, but let's not do that. And let's see, how can we cooperate with one another? What do you need to set up the kind of system that you would love to have? And this is what I need. If there's anything you've got that you don't need and you think I could use it, let's do it. That's what I would love, hands down.
And so you're talking about the ability for someone with completely different political beliefs to say to someone, "What do you need? How can I
Right.
help you?"
Why do we have to have one political belief?
Well, because we're going to choose one or the other to run the country, or at least that's what the direction we appear to be looking
Okay.
at.
So is that working?
No, it's not working. And Penny, here's what goes through my mind. I have a Twitter feed based on
Mhm.
my preferences, people that
Yeah.
I have chosen to follow.
Okay.
If I was to look at my Twitter feed, the language about the opposing side is the same language that the opposing side is using about my belief system.
Exactly.
It's the same. Oh, it's a dictator. He's a dictator. He's going to,
Yeah. He's going to destroy everything.
yeah, he's a criminal. He's a criminal. And it's the same. And I look at this and I think, how are we ever going to come together
Yeah.
when I know kind of in the back of my mind that if we all sat down and everybody just said, this is what I need,
Right.
this is what I need, and a lot of it would be very similar.
It would. Yeah. It would smooth out. When you do conflict resolution, what you discover almost across the board is that both sides are afraid of the same thing from a different angle,
Yeah.
having to live in some way that they don't want to live. And so once you address the fears, then voila, it's like, okay, was that fear real? Or was that some imaginary thing that you cooked up and then started acting like it was real? We can't do that. We have to begin to allow, we have to recognize this is, I think we talked about this in your Journey to a New Earth channel. I have, the robe said, you've outgrown your system. You have to have a new system. It isn't going to work. And they specifically said back, what was 1980, that when you have an election, the chunk of population that is dissatisfied is too big to ignore.
Yeah. So does that mean, and I've often thought, what if we just divide into two?
Right. Or three or five.
These are the people over here believe this. These are the people that believe this. Decide where you want to go,
Right.
and you guys, if that's how you want to, you go for it. We support you. Go for
Yes.
it. And we're going to do this other thing over here
Right.
because it's if we're in a system where most of the individuals feel I have no power, I have no ability to change anything. I have no effect whatsoever. I'm just a puppet to these people who are deciding how our civilization is going to be run and the rules it's going to be run by. Then that to me indicates a system that doesn't work.
No, we can't. That's backsliding quite a bit. We are about self-governance. The American system was the first system in however many millennia to say, okay, we're going to govern ourselves. We don't need a king. We don't need a queen. We don't need a this or that. But what did they do? They set up this system of electing, instead of having to do the work themselves, they said, well, we'll elect somebody who just does that. And what has happened is now you have people that got into the system, like Pelosi, and they've been in it for their whole life. And that breeds corruption. You cannot have people in power for their whole life, or it turns into corruption. And so what we've learned is, okay, the system we have needs something else. I think the Constitution doesn't really need a whole lot, but the way that we apply that Constitution, even though it may outline these three branches of government, those three branches might work on a much smaller scale. Instead of 333 million people, or however many there are in the various other countries, we talk about, okay, let's divide that and say there's 40,000 people that can maybe make that work, a three-tiered or, a three-part system.
Well, what if we came at it from another angle?
Like
And
what?
I always say we don't need more laws, we need more integrity.
Oh God, yes.
And so what if George, if going back to the look-see, you laid out all the things that George Soros did not do with his money that could have really benefited
I
humanity.
know. Right.
And one of those, what would happen if instead of doing all these other things, making toxic food, being
True.
dumbed down by entertainment, this and that, we
Right.
worked at creating humans that were steeped in integrity. Then everybody does the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, you know where I
Is
come
that some
from.
pie in the sky thing? Or is that how advanced civilizations work?
Now, if you want to be a leader where I come from, you have to go through lots, and I mean what we would call decades of training in how to be a good leader.
Yeah.
Humility, integrity, honesty, cooperation, the ability to listen. You're not in it for you. You're in it for you because you're part of the system that you want to live in, but you're not in it to sneak stuff away from the people and put it in your back pocket kind of thing. So yeah, when I think it was, I forget, I don't know how to say his name, Bukali, the guy who's the head of El Salvador, spoke
Oh,
at this
yeah. I don't know it.
conference.
I
Yeah,
don't know how to pronounce it either.
I can't. Bukele,
Mhm.
Bukali, something like that. But he said that what was the first thing he went after? The corruption of the judges and the prosecutors, the court system. That was how he got rid of corruption in El Salvador. What do we have right here, right now?
Well,
Same kind of corruption.
we our government is if you listen to Catherine Austin Fitts, which I do,
Yeah,
she says, our government is corrupt. They're a
it is.
criminal organization, and it's not just a little bit.
Oh no, it's not.
Yeah,
It's disheartening to see it in total.
yeah,
And it
and
does leave you feeling helpless, like, oh, what could I do in the
yeah.
face of all that?
And then listening to you and listening to Michael Yawn, these people coming over the border, some of them are really looking for a better life. Some of them
Yeah,
have been coaxed here, like you said in the look-see, "Oh, you're not gonna have to work. You're gonna get lots of money. You're gonna be taken care of." And it's the same kind of thing, not if you're a person of integrity and you're interested in building something of value and you wanna raise your family here in a good
yeah,
that's not the hook. The hook is greed.
yeah.
It's greed and free stuff. So it's perpetuating. It's like, how do you stop an avalanche of bad behavior?
Yeah. Okay. So you just start with the first day. You stop it for one day. Um, that whole thing about the the migrants being coaxed here with you won't have to work. They do not realize that we have the same kind of corruption and difficulty making ends meet here that they're trying to get away with or away from in their own country. So they come here. What are they going to discover? OMG. It's the same here, but just on a bigger scale than what we had in Venezuela or wherever they came from in Africa or wherever. It's just a bigger scale. And the American dream turned into quite a nightmare quite a long time ago. And nobody's been willing to talk about that. Everybody's hanging on to their little piece of whatever they've got. And I don't blame them. You know, there's a little part of me that's like, oh, wow, we have such big changes to go through. And if
Yeah.
we start not doing, um, that's it's going to cause some pushback, I'm sure. But the things. Look at the things that we've expected. One of the things we have the power to go out and buy everything we need whenever we want. What if that's not the case anymore? And it's not for a lot of people. But what if that weren't the case for those of you listening who still have money and can go out and buy whatever you want? what if that stops? What do you do then? So, you can take your money out of the bank, but where are you going to put it? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then what if that money is declared invalid, which is what they're talking about doing? People that take their money, their cash out of the bank and put it in their home safe will have to put it back in the bank at some point, except that if it's not going from one bank to the next and it's coming from your private safe, they're going to say, oh, this is terrorist money and we don't know where you got this and we're going to confiscate it. And it's a nightmare. So,
I want to make a couple of comments about what I see out in the world. I think I see more normal people than Penny.
you probably do.
So I was, and this is just perception. I'm talking about perception in America today. I was at a class. I went to a class in my neighborhood where we learned how to make sourdough bread.
Oh, nice.
That's a process, people. I'm telling you what, it's a process. And one of the women in the class said, "Oh my gosh, this is so much work. I'd rather buy it." I would too, because I'm not doing that. It's like, and what she said is, "Oh my gosh, we're so spoiled.
Yeah,
We've just become so spoiled."
I know.
And you know what I said in my mind?
What?
I said, "We become so controlled."
Oh,
Because how I see it is control.
yeah.
It's like every time we give up a little bit of freedom in exchange for a little comfort,
Yep.
we're losing our sovereignty. We're losing power over our own lives. And that's where we are right now. It's like we are so far away from running our own lives
I know.
that it's just happened incrementally. The next thing I want to say, and I don't know what your response to is this. I live in a community that's mostly over 55. It's
Yep.
a huge community. There's a part of me that feels like if things really do just fall apart and we have to start using the common areas for chickens, and this area over here is where we're going to raise the cattle, people are going to be having the time of their lives
Yeah, that's true.
because all of a sudden life feels real.
That's right.
Life feels real. I wake up in the morning, I'm 80 years old, and I have a friggin' purpose because I got to go move the cattle today. Or the ladies down the street have to can food for 30 families,
Yeah,
this week. And there's a part of me that thinks these people are going to have the time of their flippin' lives
that's true.
feeling so much purpose and being so energized to do something that really matters.
Yeah.
Am I just dreaming about that, or do you agree? Or what?
No, I think that is exactly how people would feel if we woke up someday and said, wow, we're on our own.
Yeah,
What can we pull together to ensure that we have what we need? Who knows what? And knowledge is really an important thing.
yeah,
So, yeah, that's not, I don't know that that's how the young people would look at it, but I think they would have to realize that they have to be willing to learn everything the hard way, or they have to be willing to back up a step, get, into survival mode. And it's not really survival mode, but learn how to survive in a way that's got a rhythm and a routine that's comfortable and manageable. And then take off with ideas and coming together and how do we accomplish this and how do we create that, and do you know how to design this and do you know how to fix that, and how do we make this work better, and so on, all that. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that there is a case to be made for, the children, my children's generation,
Yeah.
that they could be a little angry that we kind of dropped the ball.
uh, okay. Yeah, I think I worry about the really young ones. The really young ones will get on board and say, well, hey, let's just do this, because that's how they are. They don't know any better. But the ones that are just starting to get somewhere and that have paid a few dues, and along with all those people who got coaxed into the U.S. with the idea that they're going to be supported, handed money, housing, transportation, charge cards, food, everything is just going to be given to them. That's, there's going to be two sets of angry people. All those migrants who feel like they were conned, and then all the young people who say, what the heck are you guys doing?
Yeah.
So,
And you indicated that you felt like the grift with the people coming into the country was going to last just about as long as it takes to get through the election.
yep.
If we have one.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's the goal has been to just get through the election, using those people to vote. I guess a lot of them have been sent to red states in an effort to shift the population there. But I haven't seen an election. I don't know why. I keep thinking, okay, I don't think that's the answer.
An election?
Yeah, it's a gut feeling. I don't see the election. When I try to see it, it's like something's in the way or something makes it not happen. And I don't see the point of it when we already have two elections that we haven't settled in such a way that the populations who are unsatisfied with that are satisfied. So what's the point of a third election? Is it a 3 strikes and out kind of thing? Or do we need to see something fall flat 3 times in a row before we wake up and say, I don't think those elections are doing what we want?
This is not working.
No, it's not. So, yeah.
Well, and then we're just, what's the solution? Because the government's not going to say, game over, we're leaving, you guys handle it. They're not. It's like, I feel like we're just going to have to, get a hook and drag them out, like off the stage. I don't see any other way out, Penny, than just the regular, just the civilization, the population saying no. Just everybody saying no.
I know. If you look at the deep predictions that mainstream media stays away from by 10 miles, what we have is a prediction that the war, the civil war in the U.S., is going to turn from being a civil war, which is going on right now under the surface, is going to become a war of the people against the government. And that war, and if you listen to Martin Armstrong and his work and what he sees, and a lot of others that are not quite as out there as Martin is, he basically says we have a 2-year war, begins in 2025, doesn't end until 2027, and then everything is different. Now, there have been some predictions that war against the governments finally ends when Russia drops a bomb on the U.S. to stop the fighting, to stop the further destruction of the U.S. And Russia has, oddly, I don't know if they know about these predictions or not, but they have literally had meetings in the Kremlin about, should we drop a bomb in order to save the world from the fighting that's going to come from the U.S.? What, how, why,
Well, what would I don't understand. And I probably have right now, and I'm not saying Russia's, the place to be or this and that, but I probably have a lot more respect for Putin than
for Biden.
Other people.
Yeah.
I could name, but I don't understand how that would stop anything.
I don't either, to tell the truth. So the prediction, I've often looked at it and thought, okay, what's hidden or implicit in that prediction that we don't see? or we aren't knowing, or, what does it mean to drop a bomb on the United States in order to end the war that they're caught in? Would it be dropping a bomb on Washington, D.C. in order to end the struggle with the government? Is there some other thing that is hidden in that prediction that we haven't ventured into, or what?
Was this from Socrates, from Martin Armstrong's computer?
No. This is a thing that goes back years, decades.
Okay.
So, we have, I think we, the people of the U.S., have a certain opportunity as well as obligation to continue self-governance, to be in charge of ourselves. The thing that we're faced with is the exact opposite. Losing that ability to self-govern, to think for ourselves, to do for ourselves, to be in charge of ourselves, to set up the kind of system that we want to set up and let it evolve as we evolve. We have a 250-year-old system that hasn't evolved at all since the beginning. And well, I can't say that 100% because we've had all kinds of laws that have been added, but they aren't laws that nurture the development of the human or the civilization. They're laws of control.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're having to decide, and for a lot of people, I think it's going to be unconscious. What is it we want? Do we want self-governance? Do we want freedom? Do we want to be able to set up the system that we think is relevant and valuable and important? What do we want?
Yeah.
So.
And I think that for anyone listening, you laid it out so beautifully when you were talking about Soros, and I started to write them down, and there was too many, about what he could have done for humanity.
Oh, yeah.
What he could have done. And I would encourage everyone who either didn't listen to that or would like to know. Do you have it in front of you, Penny?
I think I do. Hang on.
Because it's when you realize where we could be as a civilization,
right?
It's stunning.
I know. I think, let me just read what I have here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is me looking at the life of George Soros and thinking, wow, all of that potential to use those billions of dollars to make individual lives better was first hoarded and then pissed away on a project to destroy nations and governments. The ruse was to use NGOs to pretend he was making a difference. But when you look under the covers, there's nothing but a naked plan to bring down governments and nations. So why didn't he use that money to feed everyone? Everyone could have had food and make sure they had high density nutrition. Oh, it's doable. Why didn't he use that money to provide electricity for everyone on the planet? There's still people who don't have electricity. And what about clean water or research into technology that was beneficial at every level? Because almost all of our technologies are destructive physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. Why didn't he use his money to demand advanced spiritual development for those who were interested in becoming mayors or governors, presidents, or politicians? Why didn't he support science and research that corrected our history and brought our understanding of the universe into alignment with goals that were bigger than just some money-grubbing, goals? Well, we could have gotten off the planet. That's a big goal. That a lot of people don't think that's important, but I do. And it's a big goal for a civilization. Why didn't he provide relevant education that taught people first how to take care of their body, to maintain exquisite good health, to maintain or restore good health, to stay in balance, mentally and emotionally, and take care of the planet in ways that allowed nature to work her magic instead of destroying Mother Nature in every corner of the world. So part of the entrapment is that the soil is depleted almost everywhere around the planet, and it doesn't really grow food that will produce high density nutrition. Cows, believe it or not, are the major soil restoring function. That's their function in this world. Their manure is absolutely stunningly powerful. And so what are they doing? They're saying, oh, you can't have cows. They have too many farts and they're destroying the carbon or whatever, the CO2 balance. They've made it illegal to have chickens. The waterways are destroyed. You can't get water in so many places unless you buy it from them, and they're putting stuff in it. Starting with fluoride, how many years ago? There's so many things. We've just been, herded into the squeeze gates, and now they're starting to squeeze. So, and all of it could be turned around in a year or two with just the pocket money from Bezos or Gates or Soros.
Yeah. And when I think about it, it just doesn't make any sense because there's no way that it ends in anything but a mess of a planet.
Yeah, I know. It will be a mess for some of the people that survive.
Yeah.
But I think I think people, just like you just said, people are going to discover that they do have a purpose. I was thinking about this again today because I was writing my thing about love, the dragon of love, which, I sent to get edited and put up on my Patreon and YouTube, etc. in the next day or two. And this in the 60s, what we had were all the hippies that were all about love. It's love. It's love. It's like, come on, you guys, get out the hair and the whatever.
I thought it was about tie-dye.
Oh, I hated tie-dye.
I wore it all the time.
Did you? Oh my gosh. So, well, people laughed at what I wore. So, I was a country girl. We made our clothes out of flour sacks, and most of it was little tiny flowers and little tiny checks. And, and I love that stuff to this day. Yeah. But in the long and the short of it, I think that they were here with a message for the whole world. And the message was a little bit premature, but it was really important. And we need that love now.
Yeah.
Make love, not war.
I know. And want more for us.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Want more for us as humans. We could have such an incredible civilization on this planet.
We are going to.
I wish I had your confidence.
We are going to. It's going to take a little work. I think it's going to be an exciting ride and very messy.
Yeah.
We are going to. So we already do. This is one of those crises that is unavoidable when a civilization wants to evolve. Not everybody will want to evolve. Yeah. Some people love right where they're at. They can stay there and be nurtured and supported and loved by us. So it's really, I think we're really coming into an exciting time. I think the next 2 months are going to be especially exciting, 3 months maybe. So it's like, okay. All right, get ready, guys.
Can you leave us with a few of the suggestions that you made at the end of the look-see about things that we could maybe implement?
Yes.
I loved all of them.
Yeah, a lot of people wrote and said, and the way they, people don't always do good English or good grammar. I love not doing. And I'm like, not doing what? Oh, duh. So I'll read my list here. Um, but I'll start it by saying all the following are very, very powerful, but only if we work together.
Yeah.
It can't be onesie twosies. We have to work in tandem with one another. So we have the power to ignore government as if it doesn't really exist. And government has to earn the right to exist, and it's not doing that. We have the power to ignore mainstream media because this is the mouthpiece of the controllers. We have the power to stage a sit-in at home and refuse to go to work. Don't go out and in a group or get a group together to protest where they can easily target you. Go home and sit. It's like a decentralized way of using power. We have the power to go out and buy everything we need to prepare for a long period of time when food or other things might not be available, and then not pay the credit card bill. The system depends on our financial compliance. Use what you've got at hand to get yourself ready for what is coming. We could take as much money out of the bank as possible, collapsing the cabal banking system. We have the power to turn off our internet for 1, 2, or 3 days and catch up on our sleep, catch up on our relationships, catch up on our loving, catch up on our need for reflection. All of those, so important. We have the power to withhold spending, not spend a single dime for 2 days, maybe more, 3, 4, 5, and deprive the elites of the money transactions that they always get a piece of. We have the power to band together and take care of one another if something bad happens. Don't be isolated. Let's take care of one another. We have the power to rethink taxes. We have the power to be utterly silent and still, as if meditating privately on what must be changed and what kind of world we want to live in. And one of the things about the system that exists is they need for us to be running around with the sky is falling kind of an attitude and freaking out about that. Sit down, be quiet, be still. It gives them reason to worry. Okay. We have the power to direct consciousness toward creating that new world, leaving the old world and its would-be controllers way behind. And let me just say, you have to let go of the old in order to make room for the new. We have the power to let go of fear, wrecking their main tool of control.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. It's like, yeah, I can handle it. We have the power to close or block highways with tractors and trucks, as is being done in Europe. As an aside, I wouldn't waste even a teaspoon of good manure by dumping it on City Hall instead of in my garden. But City Hall is an option. We have the power to follow common sense instead of senseless laws. We have the power to organize locally and network with others who are getting organized. So I think that's...
I would love to type that up and just start an
Put it out
email.
there?
Just start just everybody forward that, because understanding that we have the power, that is such a great feeling, and we can take it back.
We can. We have to. There's one last one I'll leave on this note, okay?
Okay.
If money is the barrier that keeps everyone silent and in their lane, if money is what keeps the cabal going, then money will have to come down, and you should be prepared for that. Prepared to put the cabal under siege.
Yeah.
Should we say amen?
Amen. Amen. Amen, sister. Okay. This is like the church of saying no more.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to go out and make ourselves a target. We want to do what we can, and that is typically going to come down to some form of non-compliance.
Yeah. And so powerful and so
Yeah.
very thoughtful. I would love to start getting that everywhere.
Yeah, I'll send
Mhm.
you the copy of this and you
Okay.
put it up wherever.
We
Okay.
can start thinking about that. All right. Thank you, Penny. This has been great. Can I plug my new channel really quickly?
Yes. Oh, please do. It's just, I was like, oh, wow, it's rolling. Thank God.
I have a new channel here on YouTube. It's called Journey to the New Earth, where we do a deep dive into consciousness and the real truth about our reality. So if you're interested, come on over and join me. It's Journey to the New Earth here on YouTube. Thanks, Penny. I appreciate the little commercial.
Oh, my pleasure. And you know
Yeah.
what? Let me make a small announcement too. I announced to everybody that Intuition One was starting on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and it's not.
Oh,
So we had to arrange it because too much conflict of schedule, and I'm going to be in a documentary, and the whole film crew was coming here, and it was just too much. So I believe we start. Oh dear, Nellie's going to yell at me. It's April 5, 6, and 7, or 6, 7. It's that weekend
okay.
after Easter. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay. Thank you for
yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So more on that later.
Yeah, great. And if you go over to pennykelly.com, if you haven't been there, it's a wealth of information. All her classes are there and the books. And if you haven't read The Robes, it's a must read. If you haven't read The Revival, oh my gosh, it will open your eyes up to
Oh,
the potential that we have. And we just need to get up off the couch and decide that we're going to make things different. Let's make
yeah.
things different.
I second that motion.
Yeah, Penny, thank you so much for tonight. We will be back next month with Shaping Reality, talking about the look-see from next month. And who knows? Who knows
Oh,
what's on the bingo card for that?
yeah. Amen.
All right. Thanks everyone for
Yeah,
joining us.
thank you all for coming. I hope you got something out of this.
Yeah,
Take care.
me too.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, what?